Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Huck. Today I thought I'd do a little reading update mid-month-ish. We're a little bit past mid-month at this point, but I thought it'd be fun to tell you what I'm currently reading, what I recently finished reading, what I'm thinking of reading next. Just a little mid-month-ish check-in. So first of all, I'm going to start with what I most recently finished reading. So I just finished listening to the audiobook of Storm of Locusts by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is the second book in the Sixth World series. I'm not sure actually how many books are going to be in this, but this is a Navajo-inspired post-apocalyptic kind of urban fantasy. It's not really in an urban setting, but it has a lot of like urban fantasy tropes to it. So as I said, this is the second book. We're still following Maggie, who is a monster hunter, and in this one we find out about a cult that has been started called the White Locust, and they have a mysterious leader who has some special powers and is able to influence people. This came out last year and I've been meaning to read this for a while, but just haven't gotten around to it, partially just because like post-apocalyptic and urban fantasy aren't really my favorite genres. Even though I liked the first book in this series, it's just not a genre that I'm usually in the mood for. But I have been trying to really get through some of my physical TBR. This month I'm trying to really like focus on my physical TBR and read as many as I can, and even listening to audiobooks of some of the physical books that I have. And I really enjoyed listening to the audiobook of this one. It was a lot of fun, and I think that I enjoyed this second book more than the first book, although I do wonder if that's because I listened to it as an audiobook, because I think that this one just worked really well as an audiobook, and I wonder if I would like the first one even more, even though I liked it, but I wonder if I would like it even more as an audiobook also. Anyway, so this is the one that I just finished. And then for what I'm currently reading 4 books right now, which is a little more than I usually will read at one time. Usually I'm more of a 2 books at a time kind of person. I do like a physical book and an audiobook at the same time, but I have been just mood reading so much recently, and just like not really knowing what I'm in the mood to read, that I ended up with 4 books that I'm currently reading. And that's not even counting the like 5 other books that I picked up and put down. I read like the first 20 or 30 pages and just decided this was not the moment to read that book. So the first one that I am reading right now is The Unspoken Name by A.K. Larkwood. This is a new release. It is a adult high fantasy that is following, I think, an orc priestess who was going to be sacrificed to her god and then decides to run away and become an assassin. And this, I am about 60 pages. Yeah, I'm about 60 pages into this, and it really hasn't grabbed me yet. There's something about it that hasn't really caught my interest just yet. That being said, like, I'm only 60 pages into it, and I do think that it could get better and I could get more into it if I gave it some time. I generally have a lot of patience for books, but especially fantasy books, because sometimes they take a while to get going or like get to the point of what the story is. So this one is kind of on the back burner right now just because it hasn't caught my interest, but I am going to continue reading it because I do think that I could get more into it. The book that I am like currently actively reading is Lady of the Forest by Jennifer Robertson. So this is one that I actually was not planning to read this month. I was planning to read it in May, but you know, mood reading. So this is a Robin Hood retelling that I think focuses more on the romance between Marian and Robin Hood, and this one I am about 100 pages into it so far. It's almost 600 pages. It's pretty chunky. So I'm not like super far into it story-wise yet. It hasn't really gotten to like the Robin Hood part of it just yet. It's still like all of the setup, kind of explaining how these characters are going to end up like in Sherwood and as Robin Hood's like merry men or whatever. But so far I'm really enjoying this. I think this was written in like the 90s or something, and you can definitely tell, yeah, this was published in 92, and it definitely reads like 90s fantasy, but like 90s romance fantasy. But it's still like a lot of fun. There are some things about it that are kind of cheesy or ridiculous, but I'm really enjoying it, and I feel like this is just kind of what I wanted right now, that it's just really engaging and fun, and it's like a lighter story so far, at least. I mean, I'm only 100 pages out of 600 pages into it, so it might not be as light, but I don't feel like this is gonna get super dark. But yeah, I'm just having a lot of fun reading this one, but I am getting a little impatient with it that I wanted to get to like the Robin Hood part already. I want them to be like in Sherwood Forest, and like I want the romance to move forward. Like, it's been a little bit slow in the beginning, but I'm still really liking it. And then the audiobook that I'm listening to right now is The Serpents Shadow by Rick Riordan. This is the third book in the Kane Chronicles, which is of course a middle grade. It is his Egyptian-inspired series, and I've been liking this series as well. I think this is not my favorite Rick Riordan series, but it's also not my least favorite series from him. But I've just been having a fun time listening to these, and they work really well as audiobooks. I feel like middle grade in general works really well as audiobooks, but I've really been liking listening through this series. And then the last book that I'm reading is Enchanted Hunters, The Power of Stories in Childhood by Maria Tadar. This is a nonfiction book about storytelling and I guess how it influences people's childhoods. I'm not really sure. I'm not very far into this yet. I've pretty much only read the introduction, so I'm like 5 pages into it. So I don't know that much about it yet. But this is one that has been sitting on my shelf for a really long time. I recently like rediscovered it because recently I have been like decluttering a lot and just going through everything that I own, including my books. And I kind of rediscovered some nonfiction books that I had forgot that I even owned, and I've had them apparently for a very long time. So this has been on my shelf for years, and I've just been meaning to read it. I've had this on my shelf for at least 5 years, but probably more than that. So I decided to finally pick this one up, and it's not very long. It's only like 300 pages, but like 100 of those pages are just appendices. So it's really only like a 200-page book. So I want to get further into this because, like I said, I've only read like the introduction in this so far, so I don't know that much about it. But I have read one other book by this author, which was also nonfiction, and it was about fairy tales. And I remember liking that one, although I read that a really long time ago. But I remember liking it, so I think that I'm going to like this one as well. And then for what I'm going to be reading next, my next physical book I'm thinking of reading is The Wildwood by Charles DeLint. This is a contemporary fantasy that is set, I think, in like the Canadian wilderness. It's about this artist who is like living in the woods, and I think she finds like a portal to the fairy realm or something like that. I don't really know, but I've been meaning to pick this one up. It's on my spring TBR, so I want to get to this soon. But also it's very short. It is not even 200 pages, and I feel like that might just be a fun thing to read after reading Lady of the Forest, which I'm liking, but is like a 600-page book. It might be nice to read something that's a little bit shorter and quicker. So I think this is what I'm going to pick up physically next. And then as an audiobook, I think I'm going to listen to Akata Witch by Nnedi Okorafor. This is I don't know actually if this is middle grade or YA. I always feel like it kind of straddles the line between those two. But this is also a contemporary fantasy about a girl who discovers that she has some kind of magical power. She joins this like magical group who have to fight evil. And yeah, I have just been meaning to read this for a really long time. It's been on my shelf for a while, and I really liked the Binti series by Nnedi Okorafor, so I've been meaning to read more of her stuff and just haven't gotten around to it. But I think that I'm going to try this as an audiobook. So that is all for my reading update. I hope you all are safe and well. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, bye!